Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to answer a super common TypeScript interview question. What is type narrowing and what are type guards in TypeScript? If you've ever worked with union types, like a string or number, you've probably already used type narrowing without even knowing the name. Let me show you how it works. So, in simple words, type narrowing means you start with a bigger or more general type, and inside a condition, you make it more specific. For example, if a value can be a string or number, inside an if block, you can check what it really is, and then TypeScript treats it as that specific type. Let's look at a quick example. Here, we start with this, and with typeof, we narrow the type to just a string. So inside that if, TypeScript lets us use string methods safely. Now, how do we do type narrowing in practice? There are a few very common patterns. Typeof for primitives. Like we just saw, typeof is great for primitive types, string, number, boolean, big int, and so on. In operator for object properties. In checks if a property exists on the object. If is admin in user is true, TypeScript knows this must be an admin, not just a simple user. Instanceof for class or built-ins. Instanceof is great when you're working with classes or built-in types like date. Now, there's one important term you should also know: type guard. A type guard is basically the condition we write to narrow a type at runtime. So, when we do things like typeof, in operator, instanceof, or custom functions, those are all type guards. This is called a custom type guard. We are literally telling TypeScript if this function returns true, then the value is a string. Another really powerful pattern is discriminated unions. This sounds scary, but it's actually simple. Both types share a common field, type. By checking response.type, we narrow the union and TypeScript knows exactly which shape we are working with. This is super common in front-end apps, especially with API responses or Redux-style actions. Okay, there's also another useful idea here called exhaustiveness checking. When we use discriminated unions, we often want to make sure we handled every possible case. A very common pattern is using a switch statement, and in the default branch, assigning the value to a variable of type never. Why is this helpful? Because if someone adds a new response type later and we forget to handle it here, TypeScript will complain. So this gives us safer code and makes discriminated unions even more powerful. So why is type narrowing important? Because it lets us work safely with union types. We tell TypeScript, inside this if, I've checked the value, so you can trust me. It's a string now, or it's an admin now. That means fewer runtime errors and better autocomplete and IntelliSense in VS Code. Alright, let's build an answer you can say in the interview. Type narrowing is when we take a wider type like a union and make it more specific inside a condition. We do this using type guards like typeof, in operator, and instanceof. For example, if I have a variable that could be either a string or a number, I can check if it's a string using typeof, and TypeScript will automatically narrow it down for me within that block. That's what we call a type guard. For more complex cases, we can also create custom type guards using functions that return value is type. A common advanced pattern is discriminated unions, where we narrow based on a shared literal field like type. And with switch statements, we can also use exhaustiveness checking to make sure all possible cases are handled. And that's it. If you're using TypeScript with React or any front-end framework, you'll see this all the time with props, API responses, and state. If this was helpful, Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.